Hi crafty friends, it's Carla from Creative Love Affair, and I'm back today to share a card that I made using Colorburst powders and a stamp, a sentiment stamp from the Old Island Stamp Company. It's a BC stamp. It's an older one that I got at a market. So just there you had, I had showed you the card that I had made already, and I'm just showing you how I made this. I'm inking around the edges with some pine needles distress ink. I cut the paper, it was some paper that I had in my stash, and I'm really trying hard to use up the papers that I have. It's surprising how far they actually go. So I'm trying to be really good and use up some papers. They're really pretty, so that made it easy. I'm using a sketch from Mojo Monday. I love that blog. They have a little challenge blog on there. Once a month they have a little contest, and they have awesome sketches. And so you can kind of just follow the sketch if you're not sure at first where to start. So I glued on my background paper, and now I'm just laying a doily on and another layer of paper, and it kind of gets you layering in different configurations that you might not use if you were just, or I wouldn't anyways, if I just was laying down stuff on a card. That little reindeer paper, I absolutely love it. It's one of my favorites. And I'm just putting on some red polka dot paper. And that's kind of the base of that card. Now I'm showing you the watercolor paper and the inking using some Versamark ink. And I'm going to heat emboss with white embossing powder, or you could use clear. And here's my little storage container. I find it just easier to use a little plastic container so I don't have to worry about dumping the powder back into the bottle. And I just label it so I know what it is. So there I've got my stamp sentiment background covered, and I'm just heating it, and it's so cool when that melts. It's like a magic show. So just using my heat gun, and now you can see these amazing, these are the Colorburst powders, but there are other powders, other names that you can use. I think they're similar. And I'm just tapping. You can barely even see anything going onto the card. I'm using 3 different colors, a pink there, a turquoise, and a lime. And then the magic happens when you spray it with water. And you just never get tired. Like, look at that. That is just amazing. My 4-year-old absolutely loves doing this too, because you get a different effect every time. You get combinations of colors that blend together. And I'm just using my water brush to kind of just move the paints around, or the powders around once they turn into paint there, and just blend them a little bit, but I don't want them to muddy, so I'm just wiping my paintbrush off onto the side of my craft mat just to make sure it's not contaminated. And I could let it sit a little bit longer, but I just decided to dab off the excess, and I just dip it into the color a little bit to add a few little blobs of color. And then just move that around a little bit. I just love the way this turns out, and the blending of the colors and the white embossed image. I decided to add a little bit more green, so I just tapped like a tiny bit and used my water brush to pick it up, and you can see how intense that ink is. I've painted images with this before, just doing the same way, dabbing the water brush into the paint and using it as watercolor that way, and it just gives a really nice intense image. Now I'm going to show you the card that I've done already, just compared. You can see how different it is. You can get definitely different colors. I used all the same colors of Colorburst powder, but it just depends on how they blend it. And I also am going to blend around the edge with some Distress ink, and that's going to give it a little bit darker edge to it and a little bit bolder look as well. So I used some pine needles and some festive berries because I think if it's Christmas, you totally have to go with those colors. They're awesome. And then I can just use a very dry baby wipe. It's only a little tiny bit damp, and wipe that embossing powder off, and it just lifts off any of the Distress ink or powders that are stuck to that, and it just makes the white really pop. I'm going to glue on this watercolored background now and just glue it right to the little spot that I made for it on my card. And I'm just sticking it under something just to make sure it's really flattened out and drying, because the wet glue, sometimes if it's a little bit bumpy, you have to hold it down. I'm just stamping the inside sentiment. This is a sentiment from, I think, Inka Dinka Doo. It's an older one as well. And I just edged around the edge again with the Distress ink and add some gel markers after to the little stars just to make them pop and add a little bit of color. I found these flowers in my stash. I think they were probably from Michael's, and I add that up in the corner. And if you go to that Mojo Monday blog, you'll see how the sketch is laid out, and I'm kind of just following the sketch. And of course I'm adding my favorite thing right now, which is sequins. And these sequins are the Hollyberry sequins from Spiegel Mom Scraps, and I'll put a link in the description below. They just came out. They are so new. They are beautiful, and if you're doing any Christmas cards, any Christmas layouts, these will just add, they're amazing. I love the stars. I love all the colors in them, and they just add that little pop to your project. You can see them kind of in the corner, and here's my card. So thank you so much for joining me today, and please like and subscribe, and have an awesome crafty week.